Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a couple minutes to see if at least one more joins us. Good morning.
Hello, hello.
All right.
I'm in the vehicle, but I'm not driving, just so you all know.
The wonders of technology these days. So we officially have a quorum, so I guess we'll call this meeting to order. So what we were going to do today was really I guess talk through the report that I uploaded to the shared drive to see if you guys had any changes, any suggestions, anything that we needed to do differently for the report. So, good morning, Juan. So did you guys have a chance to review?
I did. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, I know that we had feedback about national data versus local data, that kind of thing. But that was really, I mean, it's great work. I think it's in great shape.
So just to speak to that, and thank you. I did go back because of the requests of some local data. I did go back and I added that section of local data. I did also point out a little bit that the data is not necessarily there to the extent that it needs to be. And I also made the point too that yes, I realize this is local government, this is our local report, but I also think some of the things that are happening nationally are important to keep in mind as we think about what's happening at our local level and how we make recommendations to move forward. So that's why I left some of that in there. Now, I think the mayor gets to edit however she wants. So if we leave it in, she could pull it out.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts about the report, things to add, if we need to change our recommendations, alter the recommendations to any extent? Everybody's good with the report as is?
Yes.
Yes.
And thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just turn this one back in. I know that last time we had some discussion about how the recommendations should be, like identify barriers to access or identify barriers, I guess. We don't need to come with the solution but we need to identify the barriers, and then the mayor and her team would make the solutions. Or kind of come up with the solutions for that. So what we need to do is broad solutions. So declare racism as a public health crisis. To me, that's a very broad recommendation. And then it gives some things underneath that talks about potential solutions, awareness, education, those kinds of things. So to me, I feel like that follows what Tiffany was suggesting to us. The second recommendation is all about data. That was also, I know, in the first report from the health equity or health disparities subcommittee. But again, I think that's a broad recommendation related to the data and the importance of it and how it should be collected. I think it's broad enough that the county can then decide how they want to move forward with that. I think the health equity report may be a part of that, but as they have the RFP out for that, I want the council to be thinking about the importance of the data that we need or that would be helpful for us to identify really the equities in care. And then the third one, I think, is maybe where I want to maybe some feedback on. So that's the one, continue to support the development of a department to manage approved recommendations of the Racial Justice and Equality. I can change that to Equity Commission. And then that really just talks about housing the community health workers. I don't know. Is that too much of a solution? Too much of a solution and not identifying a barrier in which they can then make a solution? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? I just want to make sure we're being mindful.
And so part of what I hear in that is the potential of the framing of that we recommend a unified and connected oversight with kind of cross-functional collaboration within a set of existing goals or purpose.
Yeah. So a central hub, essentially, to kind of manage all of that. And then I had put in there, we had talked about this in several of our meetings about the importance of community health workers helping with navigation. And it doesn't say hire them. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not saying any of that. It's just, it could house community health workers who could then inform community members, navigate services and those kinds of things. So are you guys okay with that language?
Is what I'm hearing from you that you still like the idea of talking about it as a hub, or are you saying should we expand it out to not prescribe a hub, but to prescribe the oversight or to recommend oversight?
So I think what I'm saying is the recommendation would be to develop a department. And then the reason for that would be to serve as a central hub for these kinds of things. I just don't want developing a department to be seen as necessarily a solution or us telling the council that they should do this, but I think the points under that create the idea of what the barrier is. We don't have people to help with the central hub and navigating different things. And we do, like, there's some here and there's some there and some there, but it's more in silos. And then this would just be pulling everybody together. So if you guys are okay with that, I'll leave it. I just wanted to talk through that language with you.
I wonder if there is, could we propose or intentional or dedicated funding to, I don't know if we can, I don't say create a department or create a unit, but could we say identify funding to support this initiative? And then that way there's more flexibility to determine if there's a department or a specific person who oversees the project. But I don't know if that gives more flexibility and less of a solution. Maybe the recommendation is to have funding to support this initiative and however they see fit.
I think I like that wording.
Yeah. I like that too, because that talks about the oversight, but if they want to, put together a bid for an existing agency to serve that purpose, that would be within the parameters of the recommendation. Yeah. I like that.
Okay. I will change it to identify funding to support a department or management. I'll figure out, but I like the idea or the wording of identify funding to support more of this central hub, this navigation service, that kind of thing. Did I get that right, Raisa?
I think that's yes.
Okay. All right.
Funding
And
to support the oversight, maybe.
okay.
Centralized oversight.
I will wordsmith recommendation number 3 and upload it back to the shared drive. And then I think the next time we'll come together will be at our commission meeting, but maybe we can request 5 minutes to talk through that. So, and then we can just finalize this. And then our recommendation number 4 is mental health and expanding mental health services should be a priority and woven into all recommendations. And then really it was just further details are being developed and forthcoming. And I think that as we create the report for 2025, then we can focus on the mental health portion of that. And then anything else that we identify through community engagement activities. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns about anything?
I have a question. Should our I guess I'm wondering, should our recommendations be targeted towards specific zip codes that are heavily populated of minorities? So then and again, if we're trying to be strategic with saying we're thinking about racial justice and zip codes is an easier way to identify population. But then also to kind of think about maybe targeting certain areas for more financial support to deal with it, mental health.
I'm making a note. So I will tell you what my sort of thought is, and then I think yes to all of that, that we certainly do want to look at the areas that don't have the support that they need. How do we get them the support to decrease the gap in equity when it comes to mental health services? I also was hoping that we could do some community engagement activities, have that what was that thing we were going to have that we didn't have? Not the open
The
house,
town
but
hall.
the town hall to really gather some more information from the public to better understand their needs.
Got
Because
it.
otherwise, I think if we say we're going to, focus on this zip code or this neighborhood or this minority population, that's just us saying that and not really having the feedback. Certainly there's some data out there, but again, it's broad data. And I keep going back
Mhm.
to this. It's broad data. It doesn't give us down to the granular level that would really help us identify where we could make the biggest impact. So that's my initial thought. Now, happy to discuss that or anybody else's thoughts on Rais's comment.
I think that you're onto something with this idea of zip codes, but I can also understand waiting to make
Mhm.
that recommendation until after the
Town hall.
information that we get from town hall. But I think that's an important mechanism for us to remember that we have
Mhm.
access to.
Yep.
And if we wanted to, we could put that in as kind of looking toward 2025. We may be able to develop that as kind of like a specific question in the town halls that we could kind of allude to. We want to look at the viability of focusing attention per zip code or something like that. We could kind of still include that in the report as something that we're going to actively investigate for 2025.
And my questions are all because this is my first time going through the process of the report. And so I think you all have seen successful language of what it looks like. And so I have kind of a follow-up question in thinking about have recommendations been successful with seeing specific partnerships. And I say that of if there is a nonprofit in Fayette County that specifically works with racial minorities, is there an opportunity to recommend that in the future? I don't know what the logistics are, but and I don't know if there needs to go through a bidding process either, but to say a strategic partnership with this organization. Um,
So I still think we're all relatively new to this recommendation process, and
yeah.
I'll say I don't fully understand it.
Mhm.
I think from what I understand, we could make the recommendation
Yeah.
that we work with entities that provide X, Y, and Z, but I don't know that we can name
Got it.
those specifically. That would be a question, I think, for Tiffany. Um, but we could
And it,
certainly put in, I think we could put in like the little blurb or a little something that says this organization, this organization, this organization, this organization have
mhm.
had X outcomes related to this work and recommend partnering with organizations that further the mission or of the commission, something of like that. I'm making this up as I go along, but something in that language, so that we're not saying we recommend you work with this organization specifically, but these organizations have had these good outcomes, and working with organizations such as these could help decrease the gap, the health equity gap that we're seeing in X populations or those kinds of things.
And the reason why I asked that question is because I think One Lexington was probably a community-based initiative that got received support from our local government and is an initiative integrated within the government. And so that's why I asked that question of like, is that possible? How do those partnerships emerge? So
I think
sorry,
some,
Emily. Yeah.
no, I don't, no need to be sorry. I think that what it's making me think of is that we could clearly say, we recommend that partnerships would bring experience X, Y, and Z.
Mm,
So that could be something that in our recommendations to say, we think that these particular criteria should be present for any partnerships that are chosen. So we might be able to, I think that would be a really good way to use our lens, that type of thing of not choosing who it is, but what would make a good partner.
I'm making a note. I can't talk and write at the same time.
Yeah. I think that could be a really fun project for us, actually, of, that might be something that we could knock out like in a meeting to say, we think successful partnerships should be, and, I'm just spitballing this out there, but we recommend that they be local, that they have, they have diverse employees, that they have language services, that they, we might be able to come up with a list of several things that we could say as successful strategies for choosing a partnership. It's a nice recommendation to be able to put forward just as a standalone. I like that idea.
Yep, good input there. All right. Juan, do you have anything for us? Putting you on the spot here.
No, no. Well, health is not my forte. I just think it's very important that we all participate because what you guys have included. Unfortunately, um, our community, the Hispanic community, when they talk about mental health, they think, oh, the guy's crazy. So we don't seek. That's why that component of education that you guys were talking about is so critical. The partnering is so critical. So all of those points are absolutely right on target with what I think we need to continue moving, and well said. So I didn't need to add anything. You guys did a fantastic job there.
All right. So I know we're only 23 minutes in, but if we don't have anything else, we could certainly conclude the meeting. I think really we're trying to get our report finalized and ready for October because I believe it's due in October. And so that was one of the main things for today. And then certainly next steps. Maybe we should spend a few minutes talking about that. But Emily, you raised your hand.
I just want to say again, we have gotten this far in 24 minutes now because of your work on this report, and it looks so great. So thank you for the time that you put into that, and it's really something to be proud of, and I appreciate being able to have my name on your work. So thank you for that, and thank you for making this particular meeting easy.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate your guys' input too, and partnership in this because it's everybody's words and thoughts that have gone into this. So you guys ought to also pat yourselves on the back because you certainly played a part in this report. So I think for next steps, for me, and I think the timeline's going to be off. But for me, we turn the report in, council reads it, we get some feedback or figure out what they might be moving forward on. I think that's helpful. I don't know what that timeline looks like. So I'm not sure that we can rely on that for working towards 2025's report. But I think there's a couple of other things, very technical language today, like toolkits, health equity zone toolkits, health equity framework kinds of things that I've been looking at that I would like to dive into a little bit more to see if any of that relates to our community, and really look at some recommendations going forward. Again, a lot of it's data, a lot of it points to the data, but then also I think some like the partnerships that you guys were talking about. How do we really identify what partnerships would be helpful in decreasing health equity gaps? So I think that's one place we go, and then we need to probably dive into a little bit more of the mental health, because I think that's a huge disparity in health. And then we also know housing insecurity, food insecurity, which we have a housing subcommittee, but all of those things are playing into health disparities. And so I just think it's hard to separate sometimes those things from health disparities, because that's really what's playing into it. But I think, again, maybe trying to look at other avenues, partnerships, maybe with different housing organizations and those kinds of things as we move forward to 2025.
Along those lines, something that we could also work on when you think about how enmeshed all these different groups are, we could come up with a couple of bullets or open-ended questions that we share with the other subcommittees, that as they're meeting with people, as they're thinking through things, as a way to say, you know, here's a way to look at your work through a health disparities lens as well. And then, you know, potentially, I would love the idea of us hearing from some other professionals in the community about their experiences and needs. As we are waiting on a town hall, we could still hear other local expertise that could help, you know, get us towards some recommendations.
I'm so glad that Emily brought that up. There is a group within the University of Kentucky health system called promotores. They focus on the Hispanic side, mostly on the education side. So I think that will be a good, I think I know one of the people that are still working in that group that we can invite for them to share sometimes the frustrations. I'll be very honest, and this will be transparent in most of the things we deal with. Funding is the issue. We have such a horrible funding for our health disparities, for our mental health education. So somehow I think we need to make everyone aware that, unfortunately, the big hurdle is always funding. But UK has done a phenomenal job. I think they are doing and continue to use their money properly and try to include every ethnicity and every minority. They have done a great job. So I think Emily was right. I think we need to maybe invite some of these experts, because they're deep in the trenches.
I agree. I like the idea of bringing in some local experts. And so when we think about doing that, would we want them to come to the subcommittee meeting and present some information? Do we want them to come to the full commission?
My gut feeling is that the full commission will do better because everybody will listen. It's not just us. If we could invite them, I'll say let's invite them to the full group and the commission, explain their situation, because we collaboratively then can come together and maybe then will trickle down to our subcommittee as to a cohesive, not solution, because I don't know that we'll ever find a solution, but at least a cohesive recommendation that can go be presented as a whole.
So between now and our next health disparities meeting, subcommittee meeting, do we want to identify potential experts in the community related to health disparities that we could potentially invite to come speak? And then that way we can, narrow it down to maybe one or two, like we all come up with a handful or two or three, and then we can put those together at our next meeting.
I like the idea of that. And I would also say I would like us to stay open to having those folks come to our subcommittee first, and that they might be willing to go more than once. Having done this in the racial equity subcommittee, scheduling can be kind of a bear. And so if they only have one option and it is our full commission meeting, it might be a long time before we get to hear from them, where we can easily make a special meeting to accommodate somebody's schedule. I think if we start with who would we, hope to talk to, and then when Tiffany Director Brown gets to them, then, they can go through schedules and potentially we do a special meeting that's easier for us to do, then, maybe they can come to the full commission or not.
Yeah, so I'm going to combine both of those.
Yeah.
I think that, we could do 3 or 4 in a subcommittee meeting, 10 minutes each or something of that nature. That might help us identify who gives the better opportunity to provide a broader scope related to health disparities that also includes some of our other subcommittees. So then that information would also be relevant to them. Okay.
I like that.
So that brings me, I guess, to our schedule. So we didn't officially vote on our new schedule change, so that has to go to vote at our next commission meeting. Our next meeting is supposed to be December because we were meeting quarterly. I'm not sure. Like monthly seems like a lot as far as schedules go, but quarterly seems like we won't be able to really identify the things we need to do. So do we want to maybe talk about, I think as a commission, we agreed on quarterly, but then each month we'd have to schedule special meetings, which is okay if you guys are okay with that.
I'm okay with any special meetings because now we're done with taxes. So my heavy season is over. And I do agree that we may have to schedule something outside of our normal meeting to meet with these people, discuss, listen to them, see what they can bring to the table. And then, because if we wait till December, this is not going to happen until only God knows when, next year sometime.
Right.
Tax season.
Tax season. So we could certainly call a special meeting for October. It'd be the 3rd week of October. We can bring together our ideas of people with the expertise. And then in November, we can have a special meeting to where they present the information. And then December would be our regularly scheduled meeting where we can determine next steps and moving forward based on the information we heard.
I think that would be great.
Okay. So October and November, and I'll look at I think it's the 3rd Tuesday at 9:30 for special meetings. And then at this next commission, we'll have to vote on our meeting change for it to be, I think, the 3rd Tuesday at 9:30. So.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
You're not.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and thank you so much for jumping on today.
Thank
you
you.
again, Jessica. We appreciate your leadership.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you. I'm trying.
Doing great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.